Hey, my name is Forrest, welcome back. So, you want to be a programmer. You see the cool things being built. You see the money that's being made. You want that, but in what fashion? You want to make games? You want to build web apps? You want to go indie? Maybe you want to work at a big company.
I, for one, salute our new corporate overlords.
And how do you get there from where you are now? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss all that. From career paths, to money, to the job market, skills, how to learn them, and the future of software development. Your future in software development. Now, there are two types of programmers. No, I ain't talking school or self-taught. I'm talking you do a bunch of research about the industry, you map out your entire career path and all this and all that before ever writing a single line of code. That's one. The other is you've written code. You had a problem that needed to be solved and something that needs to be automated, or you built something that you just thought would be funny. Then you realize, hey, I kind of like this whole programming thing. How can I get paid doing it? Both are perfectly valid and both can be successful, but that second person already enjoys coding. If you're that first person, that's something you got to figure out. How do I enjoy the process of coding and all that it entails? Because if you don't enjoy it, then what's the point? The money? Well, I'll bet you that you will make more money doing something you enjoy than doing something just for the money. That's just a little message from me to you. That's neither here nor there. So regardless of all that, how do you get there? How do you turn programming into a career? Well, first, you got to figure out what type of programmer you want to be. What do you actually want to build? Games? Websites? Apps? Mobile? Web? Whatever? LLMs? The best way for you to figure this out is by building them. I know, easier said than done, but just build a couple little games, build a couple little websites, build a couple or one app, work on an LLM to pull down some code and play with it. You may not be min-maxing your time as if you were to just pick one and go full force at that one. And, I can get to this point, this level up here within a year or so. Whereas if I try all these other things, it'll take 2 years or 3 years to get that same level. But trust me, picking the thing that you actually want to build and figuring that out, it's going to pay off in the long run. You don't have to min-max everything. You don't have to be the most efficient with everything, the most productive individual in the world. Set yourself up for success by building a whole lot of different things to begin with. And plus, there's going to be a lot of transferable skills from the build process to the architecture and the project structure to the programming languages and concepts that can transfer from one thing to another, from games to apps. Then figure out how you can get paid doing it. That sets off everything else from here on out. You got to do that first. And one of those things from here on out would be the skills. What skills do you need to learn? And it'll change from, industry to industry. And there are quite a few skills. The first one you probably thought of is, well, of course, programming. I need to learn a programming language. But you really got to view programming languages and frameworks and libraries simply as tools. Tools just like your IDE or your CI/CD tool or your project management software. You don't think, oh, I'm going to go perfect my hammer swinging skills and my sawing skills and then I'll be the best carpenter or woodworker in the world. No, those are just the tools to get the job done, of doing the actual work. And you'll get better at using those tools and understanding which tool is better for which job by doing the actual work, by actually building things. So it is good to, dive in and learn the basics of programming, like what are variables and constants and functions and methods and classes and data structures and algorithms and things of that nature. Because referencing that previous analogy, you still have to know how to swing a hammer. So yeah, learn the basics, but with the goal of getting out of there as quickly as possible, or else you're going to get stuck in tutorial hell, and the last thing you want to do is get stuck in tutorial hell. Because you actually building things, not watching someone else build things and you just write the same code as them, but by building things yourself, that's where you're going to learn. And that's where you're going to be implementing probably the biggest skill that you need, and that is problem solving. Because you'll be faced with new problems that you have to solve. You can't just always go Google something or ask ChatGPT, hey, how do I do XYZ? Because it'll be unique. And and specific to your code base, to your use case that hasn't been seen before in this fashion. And once you have figured out how to solve the problem, you use these tools and these skills in order to implement the solution, regardless of how it's implemented. 5, 10, 20 years ago, you had to write all of the code yourself. Today, you use an AI assistant to help you write the code. And then maybe in 10 years from now, you're more or less reviewing the code written by the AI in its entirety, or maybe debugging the code or what have you. And also, I know this may come as a surprise to y'all, but I have been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. This one, obviously, I don't think I'm wrong. That's why I'm making the prediction, but you never know. And plus, 10 years is a lot of time to learn and do a lot of things. Anyway, the tools that you use as a software developer, they start off with the programming language, and then libraries and frameworks, and then where do you write all of this code, and then IDE, and then how do you control the versions of this code in version control software like Git, or Git system like GitHub or Bitbucket or what have you. And then you have build tools, and then you have CI/CD tools. Watch my last video on a complete overview of DevOps, because there you get to see the entirety of not just DevOps, but also the software developer's role and the tools used by software developers in DevOps and in the workforce, like Git, NPM, Maven, CI/CD, and of course, IDEs, with JetBrains IDEs being probably the best IDEs you can use, and with JetBrains IDEs being the sponsor of this portion of today's video. Your IDE is where you live as a programmer. This is where you write code. And whether you write in Java or Python or C++ or any of these programming languages, JetBrains has an IDE for you. But IDEs, or integrated development environments, are much more than just a simple code editor. JetBrains IDEs provide intelligent code analysis, powerful search functionality, and advanced features like AI to help you code, fully equipped out of the box with all the essentials for everyday tasks like version control, database tools, unit testing, and so on. Plus, what's beautiful about the suite of JetBrains IDEs is that they are based on a single platform. So if you've learned one of their IDEs, like IntelliJ IDEA for Java or Kotlin, that knowledge of the IDE is directly transferable to them all, like if you decided to hop into PyCharm for Python. And this will absolutely come in handy if you heed my previous advice of building different types of programs using different languages. Now, you don't have to relearn an entire new IDE platform as well. You get to focus on the language and what you're building without having your tools get in your way. I mean, that's what we all want, right? A tool that just works as it should, better than any of the others. And in my humble opinion, that is JetBrains IDEs through and through. So I highly recommend giving them a spin. I will leave a link down in the description below for you to try it out. But those skills, how do you learn those skills? Do you go to college? Do you go to a boot camp? Do you do it online courses? Are they paid or free? Maybe you watch a bunch of YouTube videos. Well, the overall answer is kind of just yes. Because at the end of the day, I mean, even if you go to college for computer science or software engineering or go to a boot camp or whatever, you're still self-taught to some degree. You just have somebody that you have access to help you out along the way. Hopefully, of course. Now I have some strong views on college and whether it's worth it, and I've never really been a huge fan of $10,000 boot camps that promise to make you job ready in 3 months or something. But regardless of your opinions on any of that, the absolute best way to learn these skills and learn how to code and to become a software developer is by building things yourself. Figure out how to set up a project in your domain with boilerplate. So maybe something like, if it's a web app or website, create Next app, or create Asha, or create Vite, or something like that you can install fairly simply, and you already have something running. Then what you can do is hop into the code base and you can see the website running, and you can make the changes. And you can see those changes happening as you're making them and get an understanding of like, oh, well, if I change this word here, it changes that word over there. If I change this color in the code base, it changes that color there. And you just play around with it. The way I see it, that breaks down that like barrier to entry where, you're setting up the IDE, you're setting up all these dependencies, you're installing all of these things, and then you got to figure out all this boilerplate to write yourself. And I don't know how to get started with all that. Well, have something else get started with all that. I mean, that's what people use anyway for like real world applications. They use some sort of something like that, and that'll help you get over that barrier and to actually playing with things and looking at the project structure and the code and actually seeing it and playing with it to understand it. And then what you do is you implement a new feature. Oh, you don't know how to do that? Look it up. Don't look up how to create a social media site. Look up, how do I create a news feed? How do I put an image on this? Or how do I make this look pretty in this color and that color? You see? Or instead of Googling it, you can use your new JetBrains AI assistant, or you can plug it into ChatGPT. Say, here's my code. This is what I want to do. I want to put a picture in here. And then, very important, have it explain it to you. Why did it do what it did and how? Like, why does this work? Right here, this is where you want to let your curiosity, you let your desire to learn fuel everything. Because that interest, that curiosity is what will just have you going from next step to next step to next step. That's why I say you have to find what you enjoy and pursue that, because that idea of enjoyment and curiosity and desire to get better at that thing because you like doing it, it's going to outweigh everything else. However, you're not always going to be curious. You're going to be hitting roadblocks that you spend hours on and still can't figure it out, or days on and still can't figure it out. That's when you need to implement discipline, and those are other skills that you need that I guess could have been mentioned in the skills section, but like I feel like that's kind of obvious, and that kind of goes for anything in life that's worth having and worth doing, but that's neither here nor there. So long story long, go the self-taught route first. Build silly little projects in the terminal or in your game dev studio thing, or what I just said with like Create Vite. Maybe pull an existing code base down from GitHub that you know works and build that and play around with that. Then, and only then, should you make the decision for the next step. And that is, do I want to go to school? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? You just continue to build and build and build and build. Oh, but however, if you do end up becoming a computer science or software engineering student, you end up going to college, check out my Notion student template, Studious for Notion, at notionstudent.com. But wait, Forrest, are there even software engineering jobs? I mean, look at all these layoffs that have been happening. And I've been perusing, if you will, all of these CS career subreddits and software engineering subreddits. Nobody can get a job. It's all doom and gloom. So if I can't get a job, what's the point? Well, I have some thoughts on that. There have been a lot of layoffs this year, even last year, being 59% more layoffs than the year before in the tech industry. But a lot of those layoffs are HR or DEI workers or middle management and so on. Not all were devs, however, many were. But based on the data I've seen, the amount of layoffs is just a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of hires. It really just seems like a cyclical process. Maybe to fill the same position at a lower salary. Or maybe to appease the shareholders, because layoffs, they do wonders for the balance sheet. And as for the subreddits, y'all should know by now that when viewing things online, you're just getting the 1%. The worst 1% when things are bad. And the best 1% when things are good. Like when people post on Instagram. You're just seeing the best 1% of their lives to make it seem like they're living such a greater life than you. It's just, the data is skewed if you want to look at it that way. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of these people who are applying to hundreds and hundreds of jobs and being rejected or ghosted, well, they are doing the right things. I mean, maybe some are, but many cases that I've seen, they are not. I've seen so many only applying to remote jobs. Yeah, that's going to be a lot more difficult because you're going to be competing against the rest of the entire country, if not the entire world, for that job. That's why you see 1,000 applicants for these jobs on LinkedIn or Indeed. Instead, How about taking a look at local companies where you work on site? It may not be the exact lifestyle that you want. Maybe you really want that remote job, but the competition is much less fierce. Having any job is better than having no job. Plus, I've seen many of these individuals are like, here's my resume that I've applied to these hundreds of jobs. What do you think about it? That's not how you do things. You need to cater your resume to every single job listing, because there are automated filters that say, oh, they don't hit this programming language or this framework or this or that. Let's just dump it. And that's the automated system doing it. You don't even go to a human. Or if you do go to a human, it's HR looking at it, and they're just filtering through and matching up they have the job listing open over here, they have the resume open over here. You need to write your resume to match the job listing. Because if you're applying to the job, presumably you have the skills to do it, so make sure that shines through. Your entire goal, the only goal when you apply to a job, is to get your foot in the door, to show them in an interview what you can actually do. And now, I don't want to give anybody any false hope. Competition is fierce, period. There are a lot of software developers, a lot more than when I got my first job however many years ago now. Which is why if you have no experience, you need to build something. Do something to stand out. Build a portfolio to showcase that work. Network with people in the industry. Go to events and job fairs. I don't care if you go to the college or not. If there's a college nearby and there's a career fair going on, just go. They don't check your ID. And cold email or DM managers or owners of small local companies that they may not have a listing for your exact position, but maybe they will, or maybe they have an internship opportunity or something that you can do to just get that foot in the door. Anything and everything you can do, like all that I just listed, you should do. All of it. There are software development jobs out there. You just have to make sure that you're the right fit and that you're doing everything you can to give yourself a chance. And now, money. I've actually just recently made an entire video on how much software engineers actually make. So that video is going to do a lot more for you in this department than what I can do in this video. But the median for software engineers, according to levels.fyi, which has aggregated a lot of data, is $170,000, give or take. However, based on the data, I am convinced that it is pretty heavily skewed towards the Silicon Valley salaries, which, some might say earn a little bit more than software engineers in the rest of the country. Oh, by the way, that is for the United States. And by the way, that is the median for everything from junior all the way up to principal software engineers who are making 7 figures. And that's salary as well as bonus, as well as something else maybe. I don't know. That's total comp. And that salary for software engineers is probably what you could expect to make around the high mid-level to senior software engineer rank. So, don't expect to make that right out the gate as a junior. But maybe, depending on all of these other variables, that's what you could expect to make a few years down the line, as long as you play your cards right. If you wanted to do some more research, I would recommend using a lot of different sources. This is the one that I had referenced just a second ago, levels.fyi, where they have a lot of, different types of software engineers and their median salaries and more information about it, data scientists, software engineering manager, security analysts, and all of that. And they currently have software engineer salary listed, the median total comp US and all the other variables I previously mentioned from junior to principal is about $177,000 a year. MLAI software engineer around $255,000 a year. Testing $140,000 a year, DevOps $150,000, Android $190,000, Data $160,000, Full Stack $154,000, and Web Dev front end $153,000. Again, how accurate is the data? I don't know. Just know that there are jobs out there that do pay this much for those jobs. You just have to be in the right area. I bet this is skewed for the higher cost of living areas and things of that nature. You get it. I just wanted to make sure that I expressed that caveat so you don't, so I don't get your hopes up that you think you're going to make $200,000 a year and then get an offer for $85,000 a year or something like that. And that's that. As much detail as I can give you while still trying to keep this video clean and concise. Although I don't think it was very concise. I think this is a pretty long video. If you want to learn more about anything, any step in the process from, learning the skills to all the way to being in the weeds of software engineering on the job, I've made many videos on this channel going in depth on all of those things. So feel free to check those out. If you have something specific that maybe I haven't addressed before in a previous video, feel free to leave that question in the comment. Hopefully I'll get to it. If not, maybe somebody else will. If you are genuinely interested in becoming a programmer, then you probably want to sign up to my newsletter, DevNotes, at devnotesdaily.com. It's completely free, sending you 3 emails a week on what's going on in the software development industry. And also, on those emails, you can reply to those emails, and ask me more questions there too. But that's all I got for now. Again, I'm Forrest. I'll see you in the next one.